Okay, so now our next topic is ER models. Now here we are going to discuss about what are entities, attributes and entity sets, and then we will discuss further about ER models in the next video. So let's start with this part. So I will start with our previous video in which I left you with some question in my description. If you have gone through it and if you have understood the topic well, you will understand this easily, this particular portion of this video. So there I told you that there we discussed that when we are talking about select command, then it goes to DML, DML of the query processor in our phases. Yeah. And then I told you one more thing, that certain commands like create, which is written over here, certain commands like create, alter, grant, they go to DDL interpreter. So DDL, I told you, it is definition language, data definition language, okay, which I told you, which will come in very much detail in later phases. But the one thing that we were discussing that time, okay, create command, it goes to DDL, which select command will never touch. Okay, so I hope you remember that part. So the interpreter will do what? So here the interpreter will record the table's design into the data dictionary. So it will record the table's design into data dictionary. And the authorization manager will then note the authorization manager in our next part of that architecture of DBMS. It will note who owns this table and who can have access to this table. So all these things we have already discussed in our previous video. If you have not seen that video, please watch that video completely. You will understand these things very easily. Okay, so then file manager will do what? It will allocate the fresh disk space for that table. Now, if you have understood DDL interpreter and data dictionary, well done. Now, basically you understood the architecture well. Now here we are going to take up this part to understand why we need ER models. Yeah. So let us understand. I hope I just made you recall the topic which we have discussed in the previous class. Fine. So let's go further. Yes. So see why this design is required, why this ER model is required, that we are going to discuss now. So we have to understand one thing. One question is existing here. Before our DBA, database administrator, can create any table. So this also we discussed that DBA, database and administrator, has authority to create the table. So basically this person is creating the tables. Yes, he is the person, he or she is the person who will give the authorization, who will decide what will happen with the table, where it will be stored. All these things will happen with the decision of DBA only. Now, before DBA can create any table, someone has to decide which table should exist. What column should each one have? How do they connect to each other? So suppose we have two tables. Now this table will be having which name, this table will be having which name, and then what columns they will be having. Yeah, and then how they will interact with each other. If this table needs some data from this table needs some data from this table, then how this interaction happens. All these things someone has to decide. You can think about a house. Okay, no engineer walks into an empty land and starts laying, directly bricks. So first the architect draws some blueprint. Yeah. So here I mentioned that. So first the architect has to give you some blueprint, and then he will have to decide how the every wall will look like, how every door will be planned, every room will look like. On paper it will be done. Yeah, this part. And then your construction begins. So this happens. So you can think about this scenario, we'll relate it. Databases work exactly in the same way. So here also we have to first see what we want. The blueprint of the database, basically we have to give. And this blueprint will be our ER diagram. Okay, so here designer will draw the ER diagram first. and it is called as, what is the full form? Entity relationship diagram. Entity relationship diagram, that is ER. Okay, I hope you got some idea. Fine. So then every entity will be decided. That means every part, what things will be there in our database. Okay, what is entity, that I will tell you, and then how they are connected to each other, and then finally your tables will be created. So in this way we have to go step by step. Yeah, so I can say that ER diagram is the blueprint of our database and tables will be our bricks. I hope you got some idea. What is it all about? Yeah, let's go further and let us understand it in more detailed way. What are these things that we have to do? Okay, so here the thing is like our database design, it happens in some phases. Okay, so I would say the first phase is requirement. So sitting with your client and asking what our system needs. Um, Basically, you can think it like the college needs to track students, courses, marks, faculty, everything. So what are the requirements? Okay. Stage two comes is our conceptual design. Yeah, which will happen using ER model. So basically, after knowing the requirements, we have to design it on paper first. Correct. And here only we will do our ER modeling. And conceptual design phase only will have this ER model. So ER model is also called as conceptual model. Okay. So ER model comes in this phase. And we are here right now. After this, we have to convert this ER model into our tables. That is called as logical design. So that will come further after that. And finally, our indexes and storages. So relational tables and how to write queries, this will come in detail in your further units. And then indexes and storage, it will come again in further units in detail. But we are going to discuss them one by one, and with our some lab practices, it will come very soon. We are going to discuss that with SQL, MySQL. We are going to discuss all of them one by one, how these things happen. So first we have to understand on paper how to design our ER model. Okay, great. So this ER model is entity relationship diagram, entity relationship model, or conceptual model. Fine. So that we are going to discuss one by one. So here, basically this stage two, it matters a lot. Why so? Because if our blueprint will be wrong, then every later stage will have the mistakes that we made in the blueprint. And finally, we will have a bad design, and finally, we will have bad database that will crash one day. So duplicate data, updation errors, impossible queries, all of these things will trace back to bad ER diagram. So it is very crucial part that we have to get our ER model very correctly, precisely on the basis of the requirements. Great. So let us understand it further. I hope you got some idea till now what we have discussed so far. Yes, entity relationship model we are discussing. It is a conceptual model and it works like a blueprint of our database. Yes. So let us see further. Now, one by one, all the things we are going to cover up. What does ER model contains? First thing, what is entity? Now, the first term in entity relationship diagram is entity. What is entity? So, an ER model basically sees our complete database with two things, mainly entities and their relationships. So, it will have entities and it will have relationships. Fine. So today we are going to discuss first entities and then we will discuss about relationships. So what is entity? Entity is a real world object that exists and is distinguishable from all other objects. So in a casual term, I can also say which is having some real world existence. Entity is the one which is having some real world existence, and then it should be distinguished from all other objects. For example, what can be the examples? Like a specific student, name is Ravi. Okay, it is having a real world existence and it distinguishes from other objects. Okay, your phone, it is having a real world existence. So by distinguishable means there is always a way to tell two different entities. That means there is a difference between these two entities. So you cannot have features of a student into a phone, and you cannot have a features of phone into a student. Yeah, so they are distinguishable from each other. That is the meaning. So we can differentiate easily. In the same way, a specific college like Gitanjali College. Okay, so it is having some specific attributes, features which are different from the another entity. So it is having its own existence. Course, any course, like for example DBMS course, a specific course can also be one entity. Okay, okay, great. So yeah, so you are also an entity as a person. So person is also one entity. We are also an entity. Person is having its own attributes, own features. So we are also having a physical existence, a real world existence in the world, and we are distinguishable from all other, you know, living beings. Correct. So human being is one entity. Correct. You can consider animal also. It is one entity. Correct. I hope you got some idea what is an entity. Very crucial part. Please understand what is entity, and please see the video again if you have not understood it. So let's go further. What are other parts? Now next is entity and entity set. Now what happens is we are talking about a student. Student is having some roll number. Now if you'll talk about there are other students also like Priya, Ahmed, Sneha, they all are entities. Yes, but when we are talking about a model, when you are designing it, then you will not make Ravi a separate entity. You will not make Priya a separate entity because they all are having similar attitude. They all are human beings. They belong to one category. And as per our data, we can call them, if we are talking in terms of college or any university or any organization in which these are studying as students, then they come under the category as student. So Priya, Ram, Ahmed, Sneha, they all come as one entity which is called as student. Okay. So when we are talking about all of them together, yes, like one specific student, Ravi is there. So then what happens is if collection of all the students we will take, it becomes entity set. It becomes entity set like this. And we have to represent our entity in the diagram as a set. So here our set will be student, not Ravi or Priya or Sneha, because they all are having some similar features. Like they all will be having roll numbers, they all will be having Aadhaar card, they all will be having PAN number, they all will be having some course assigned. So they all come under one category, which is a student. So student becomes one entity set, which is collection of similar entities. So all students of the college will be represented as one rectangle shape in the ER diagram. So this is our first representation, that is a rectangle, which is representation of an entity. I hope you got some idea. Great. So let's go to the further part. It's becoming very interesting. Finally, we'll be drawing big ER diagrams of different examples and you will be doing it by yourself. So ER notation, the rectangle will always represent an entity set. Correct? Next thing. Now, what will be the features of that entity? That is called as attribute. So their representation also will be there in the diagram and that will make our model. So next term is attributes. What are attributes? To describe an entity, we have different features. The properties every member of the set has. Yes, like student, every member of the set is now student. Every student will have some properties. What are those properties that we have to identify? Yes. So what do you want to know about each student? Their roll number, their name, their phone, their date of birth, their age. These properties are called as attributes. So every student will have a roll number, every student will have a date of birth, every student will have a name, every student will have a phone number, every student will have a age. Correct. So all these will be represented with an elliptical shape, ellipse. So each attribute will be drawn with the shape of ellipse. So here we represented entity, here we came as attribute. So this became one entity. So this is one entity. Now you can think of different entities. Yes, give it a pause and think about it, that what are different types of entities that can exist. You can comment to me and we can discuss on it. Yes. Now, let's see. So here comes till now what we have seen. Now we have entity and we have attributes. These two things we are clear about. Now further, we are going to see there are different types of attributes that we have to remember. So that we are going to discuss now. Correct. Now see, what will happen here? There are different ways to represent the features. Like, for example, here, can you divide any attribute into further smaller pieces? Like, for example, roll number. Roll number is one attribute. Can you divide it further? No way. There is no other way to represent roll number. Roll number will be represented with one identity number that can be anything. Like 001, I would say an example. It is one roll number of a student. So it is written over here. Splitting it will make no sense because this whole number together will represent one identity of a student. Correct. Now you think of another attribute, which is name. Can you divide name? Yes, it can be further divided. If you sometimes go and fill some applications online, there also you see the name, instead of name, you see first name, fill your first name and fill your middle name and fill your last name. Even I have divided it into three parts. Correct. Here it is divided into two parts, first name, last name. But the main agenda here is to understand that yes, the name can be divided into further parts. There are different ways. So name can be represented as first name, last name. So these type of attributes like name, these type of attributes are called as composite attributes, which are made of some smaller meaningful parts. So you have to think which attributes can be divided further into some smaller attributes. That will give you composite attributes. Now, can you think of some other examples which are composite attributes? Think of it. Give it some time. Great. I'll give you one example, one more example. One attribute can be your address. So address can be further divided. Street, city, state, country. So in this way it can be further divided. So some forms, some applications, when you are joining some applications and you are doing registrations for those applications, they ask you, instead of the direct address, they divide it further into subparts, like what is your street name, what is your city name, what is your state name, what is your pin code, what is your country name. Yeah, and then you do registration. So these type of attributes are called as composite attributes. I hope you got some idea. If you have any doubts, please drop a comment. Okay, fine. Let's go further. Next type of attributes are single valued versus multi-valued attributes. Now you can think of another scenario, like The single valued attributes, the attributes which are having only one value, like date of birth will be one only. Yeah, every person will have one date of birth only. So one student will have only one date of birth. It cannot be have two date of births. Correct. So as we maintain our data, we have to see this. Correct. How many values per student we are maintaining. So date of birth, one value. Now you see this. One person, one student can have multiple phone numbers like home phone number, personal number, hostel number, guardian number. In these way, they can give multiple contact numbers. Correct. So those type of attributes which can have multiple values, which can have many values, they are called as multi-valued attributes, and its representation is double ellipse, which is shown over here. Okay. Correct. So to remember such things, composite, which can be further divided, single valued, which can have only one value, multi-valued, because it can have many values, so it can be represented with double ellipse. So that is the thing. I hope you got some idea. Let's go quickly to the next type of attribute. Okay. So next one is stored versus derived attribute. So what happens in this one? It is very interesting and one of my favorite. So what happens here is basically it will tell you how our database think. So the thing is like you have to think whether we should store this attribute or not. So here one attribute is given as date of birth. It will never change and it is very safe to store. So we maintain this date of birth. Correct. So once date of birth, whatever it is of a person, will it ever change? No. So once it will be stored, it will be stored for, you know, it can be stored for a lifetime in any data set. Correct. So that type of attribute is called as stored attribute. Now why we are not calling it as simple attribute? Because some things can change, but this is one of the attribute which will not change. It is once fixed, it is fixed. So that's why. Now which one is derived attribute? Now think of age. Suppose we store age as 90. Suppose we are storing this age in the database as 90. Then what happens next year? It will become a wrong data in the table. Correct. So this is our database. I have stored 19. But next year, because the person now became 20, we have to change it again and again. So instead of this, what we do is we derive this age from date of birth. If we have the stored attribute from this only, it will be derived. I hope you got some data. Yes. Yes. So what is happening over here? You obviously will not want to run this update query again and again for so many number of students. Imagine an organization, university or college in which thousands of students are studying. And for them, you are not going to do this update again and again every year. So what you do? Don't maintain age, maintain date of birth in the database. And then this will be derived from date of birth. That is the thing. So that's why the derived attributes, the representation of derived attribute is done by dashed ellipse. It is done by dashed ellipse. So dashed border, because it is not really stored, it will be calculated on demand. So that type of attribute is called as derived attribute. Okay. So now you can think of different other types of attributes which can be derived attributes. Put your answers in the comment. It will be a great point of discussion. What do you think? Which attributes in any database are derived ones and which ones are stored ones? Great. So let's go further. Next, the fourth one is key attribute. The key attribute. That is the last one we are going to discuss in this types of attributes. And what are they? Basically, it connects to the definition of our entity itself. So you have to understand. So entities should be distinguishable. I hope you remember that definition. Yes. So entities are what? They are real world existing and they should be distinguishable. Correct. So every entity set needs at least one attribute whose value is unique for every member. So we need, this is our entity set, student. So we need at least one attribute which will identify, which will identify the student uniquely. So what it can be? It can be roll number if you are a student. Suppose there is another entity I am taking, employee. So for employee, what is the unique attribute? It is their employee ID. So to represent the key attribute, this is becoming your key attribute, which is identifying the entity uniquely. Correct. So we will underline that attribute, underline the attribute. So that is the representation of a key attribute underlined in the ER diagram. So I hope you remember these representations because they will be utilized to create the whole blueprint of the database. Correct. Why it is unique? Because no two students can have same roll number. They will always be unique. Correct. Why employee ID is unique? Because no two employees can have same employee ID. Every employee will have its own employee ID. Correct. Here also you can understand two students can share a name, but two students cannot share a role. So key is guaranteed distinguishable. Key will be a guaranteed distinguishable attribute. Correct. I hope you got some idea. So these are all our different types of attributes. Now this becomes our all types of attributes in one diagram that you can see. Composite attribute. I'm just giving you the names. Stored attribute. Derived attribute. Multivalued. And key attribute. It is also called as primary key. Please remember this. It is also called as primary key. Correct. Great. Great. Now you can think of some entities and you can think of some attributes of those entities and then draw these types of initial diagrams by yourself. You can upload the screenshots in the comments so that we can have some further discussions on that. Correct. Great. So from this portion, we'll go further to our next part. These are all the representations before making a full-fledged ER model. These are the representations that you have to remember. Rectangle, entity set. Ellipse, attribute. Double ellipse, multivalued attribute. Dashed ellipse, derived attribute. Underline, that is key attribute. Great. Okay. Now, this is one question for you that I'm leaving at the end of the video for you, and which you should pause the video right now, and I'm giving you these entities and attribute. We have one entity given over here, employee, and it is having some attributes given over here like employee ID, name, salary, skills, and experience. So which symbol does each one get? Okay, pause this video, draw this diagram, and then you can match your answer with this slide. Great. So finally, the thing is, today we have discussed certain things. What is ER model? What is entity? What is attribute? What is entity set? So there are different types of questions that can be asked from this portion, from this topic. Like one can be like explain the types of attributes in the ER model with suitable examples. I hope you should pause the video and you should write answers by yourself. And for any further clarifications, you can go back in the video, listen to the topic, and then you'll definitely be able to answer these questions. Define entity set. Give some examples. What is derived attribute? how derived attribute is represented. So it is not just about derived attribute. It is about what is composite attribute, what is multivalued attribute, how it is represented. These type of questions can come for 2 marks. Match the ER notation symbols with their meanings. So like one table we have discussed in which the representations, rectangle for entity set. Yeah, in this way matching columns can come. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you got to learn something. For any doubts you have, you can comment to me, you can send an email to me. This is also one more question which I'm leaving for you. I hope I will get some answers in the comments. Thank you so much, students, for watching my video and for joining my channel. It is a great, motivation and inspiration to me to keep running this channel. It's all because of you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.